The conflict going on with the Native Americans has been going on for centuries before the Trail of Tears, but the Trail of Tears was a point in history where the Native Americans were treated less than human. The Native Americans were occupying land west of the Mississippi River, and the U.S. believed it was their God-given right to expand to the Pacific Ocean. The U.S. was determined and were not afraid to take the Native Americans' land. Andrew Jackson was the force against the Native Americans for a long time. He was a self-made man and was famous for leading the U.S. to victory during the First Seminole War of 1817. Spain in 1819 ceded a majority of Florida to the U.S., and in 1823 the U.S. removed the Native Americans from their homelands in Florida. In 1829, Andrew Jackson became the President of the United States. One of the first actions Jackson took as president was the Indian Removal Act. Jackson believed that if the Indians were removed, then it would erase all conflict with the Indians in the United States. The Indian Removal Act was where, in exchange for the land east of the Mississippi River, the U.S. would move the Native Americans to the land west of the Mississippi River. Theodore Frelinghuysen, a U.S. Senator at the time, led the opposition against Jackson's idea of the Indian Removal Act. He made an attempt to warn them of the consequences of the Indian Removal Act. Even after a 6-hour speech over a span of 3 days, the Indian Removal Act was passed in 1830. The U.S. government believed this was a generous offer, but the Native Americans were not open to leaving their homelands. We are aware that some persons suppose it will be for our advantage to remove beyond the Mississippi. Our people universally think otherwise. We wish to remain on the land of our fathers. Appeal of the Cherokee Nation, 1830. The U.S. government had many attempts to remove the Native Americans from their homelands anyways. In 1835, the U.S. had 500 Cherokees to sign a treaty that stated they would be gone from their land by 1838. John Ross, the leader of the Cherokee Indians from 1828 until his death in 1866, responded that these 500 Native Americans were not authority figures or even close to being so, did not represent the 17,000 Cherokee Indians. Some Americans agreed with John Ross, but not enough to persuade President Jackson otherwise. Only 2,000 of the region's Indians have moved west by 1838. President Martin Van Buren, Jackson's successor, was prepared to move the Indians west. In May of 1838, General Winfield Scott and 7,000 troops arrived to remove the remaining Cherokee Indians by force. 3,000 Cherokee Indians began their forced voyage on June 6, 1838. The leftover 12,000 Native Americans were left in prison camps to wait to travel through the freezing temperatures and snow in the winter of 1838 and 1839. In the prison camps, they were treated poorly and illness broke out. 2,000 Cherokee prisoners died from the treatment in prison camps. On the trail, they were abused by U.S. generals, they had to face extreme weather, they were being starved along with leaving the lands of their ancestors. After traveling nearly 1,000 miles on foot, nearly one-fourth of the Cherokee population was killed. This journey was called the Nana Da Ul Tranyi, or the Trail Where They Cried. The removal of the Cherokee Indians by force from their homelands by the U.S. government is now known as the Trail of Tears.